community was aware of our new grants programming process and the applications, our staff delivered 12 information sessions and 2 workshops during September and October that were attended by 92 people across the region. So these were held in both Gympie and in the regional libraries. Information was also provided to applicants via email, in person and over the phone prior to and during the grant round. And officers undertook over 100 contacts with potential grant applicants. As outlined in the report, for the competitive round, a total of 71 applications were assessed, with a total of $712,022 requested from the applicants. Every category has been oversubscribed in this round. Officers are recommending 57 of the 71 applications to be approved, for a total of $529,995, which ensures that we have grant funding available to service the rest of the rolling grant round in 22-23. Applicants can apply for the recovery, wellbeing and resilience category until funds are exhausted or up until 31 May 2023. We have received an application from the Gympie Chamber of Commerce to deliver 3 events on Mary Streets. And as outlined in the report, a total of $29,000 is recommended for funding for this application. In terms of budget implications, recommended grant funding in this report is within the 22-23 budget allocations for community grants and events budget allocations. The report also outlines the external and internal funding sources that are available for community grants. So in terms of the recommendations, which are outlined in the report, know that we are seeking council to endorse the 1 application for the recovery, wellbeing, resilience category. We are seeking council to approve the 57 grant recommendations for the competitive round. Staff are very pleased with the diversity of grant applications that have come in for this round, ranging from new lights for tennis clubs, sewage treatment plants, kitchen upgrades for halls, structural engineering reports for halls, day training, website development, recycling programs, creative arts programs, theatre performances, Santa Comes to Rainbow Beach. There are a very wide range of activities that are outlined in these grant programs to the Mayor and Mr. Councillors.
Thank you, Ms Stark. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Devereux.
Mayor Hartwig, given the recovery, wellbeing, resilience category, shouldn't we deal with the late item first, since that's directly related?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, my understanding was given the grant application through the process outlined in the grant guidelines and the policy, officers assessed that in accordance with the guidelines, and in accordance with that, it was to bring our recommendation to council for its consideration. So it was basically to see that process through to completion stage, and then it would be up to the applicant as to whether it would choose to accept that grant offer and the funding and the funding.
And you're happy with that?
I'm
Mayor
happy with
Hartwig?
that.
Okay.
Any other questions, councillors? We have a standard recommendation there. Councillor Smerdon to move, Councillor Jensen to second, Councillor Smerdon to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, your sentiments. I think this has been a very good result as far as these grants go. It's the broad coverage over the whole region is probably the first time I've actually seen this broader coverage, and I think it's been well run and well received, and I'm very happy to move.
Councillor Jensen.
This is great for communities. You've done a great job. Thank you. That's enough said. That's communities need it. They got it. Let's go with it. Happy to second.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Smerdon to close.
Happy to move.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Have someone go and the two councillors know. While they're coming in, we'll, item 7.3, new lease proposal, Gympie Aerodrome. Is that yours again, Ms Stark?
Do you like me to commence, Mr Mayor, or wait until they?
As soon as they're coming in.
Councillors, was outlined in the report. This is a new lease proposal for a parcel of land at the Gympie Aerodrome. So the Queensland Fire and Emergency Services is seeking a 10-year lease from council with an option to extend for a parcel of land at the aerodrome. Within the leased area, QFIS intend to install a 20-foot shipping container, 3 45,000-litre water storage tanks, some water hydrants and associated pipe work. The purpose of the lease is to enable QFIS to install these water tanks and related infrastructure to provide critical aerial and aerodrome-based firefighting operations. The provision of on-site tanks is a significant advantage in addressing council's fire management responsibilities on-site, particularly in light of the refuelling facility at the aerodrome. In terms of budget implications, it's proposed that a pepper grant be offered to QFIS in exchange for the ability to access the water hydrants and tanks for aerodrome-based firefighting operations. The recommendations are outlined in the report. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Smead?
Yeah, councillor, question for Mr Burns. This obviously will come under building and planning. I have no objections to it.
Mr Mayor, there's no objections.
Any other
In
que-
actual fact, it's supported.
Any other questions? With that, we have a recommendation there in relation to the lease. Is someone to move? Councillor Stewart, Councillor Waldock to second, Councillor Stewart to speak.
Mr Mayor, this is a win-win situation. It's good for our community and in increasing firefighting capacity, and it's good for our aerodrome, and so I think it's worthwhile to support.
Councillor Waldock.
No, whatever. Thank you. We're just happy to move.
Two speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Stewart to close.
Nothing further to add.
That will go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 7.4, Bevan Swimming Pool and Rainbow Beach Aquatic Centre financial and operating arrangements. Over to you again, Ms Stark.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. At Council's workshop in November, the operating arrangements of both the Kilkeven Swimming Pool and the Rainbow Beach Aquatic Centre were discussed. The report before us today outlines the current operating model of each pool and Council's financial contributions. The report also proposes short-term budget and operational arrangements to provide the pool operators and the general public with certainty about community access to these swimming pools. The report is fairly self-explanatory, so I'll take the report as read. As outlined in the recommendations in respect to the Kilkeven Swimming Pool, officers are seeking to support an increase to the monthly contributions from $5,000 to $5,250 per calendar month between September and April, inclusively for 22-23. Also to continue providing financial contribution for public liability insurance, but importantly also delegating to the Chief Executive Officer to authorise us to negotiate a suitable arrangement between Council and the State of Queensland in regards to the Kilkeven swimming pool. In respect to the Rainbow Beach Aquatic Centre, we're also seeking Council's endorsement to delegate to the Chief Executive Officer authority to negotiate a suitable arrangement with the Rainbow Beach Sports Recreation and Memorial Club in regard to council contributions, operating and reporting arrangements. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Devereux.
I move to lay this on the table.
And the reason for laying it on the table?
At the last workshop briefing, I presented information showing the information we were presented with by council regarding the pools was incorrect. I would have thought we would have had the information corrected, and the other information, which was of a similar nature, should to have come back to us before we were asked to vote on this. I propose we lay it on the table until we have the information corrected and presented to us. as staff information is presented to us to help us make these decisions. Just don't feel comfortable moving forward with it.
Councillor Devereux has moved to lay it on the table. Any questions for Councillor Devereux?
And I think we identified what that lack of information was. Does it make a significant difference to the outcome? It was,
I think
Is it
the
price
information
difference?
presented to us is to help us make informed decisions.
Yeah.
The information that I showed it was wrong in one aspect. I don't know about all the others, so I would like to have that confirmed and the information brought back to us, just so that, otherwise, what's the point of bringing it to us in the first place if it wasn't to help us make decisions around the pools?
Councillor Mill and then Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, I've got kind of a similar question is the relevance of that, what report they were presenting in that briefing was a wider picture report. It was not directed really at this, and I don't think it actually has any bearing on these two considerations. This is about council supplying funding to these two external pools, to our pool of pools, and getting some clarity between that funding and what arrangements we have with those pools. That other information is not really relevant to this. So I'm asking, how is it relevant to this?
Because we're increasing the money we're giving to them, okay, which I actually don't have a problem with. But the information that was presented to us I saw as a reason to do it. Like it showed the numbers that were going through each pool, and I would like to have that information corrected before I vote on a pool issue.
Councillor Stewart.
Look, Mr. Fry, Mr. Mayor, because the numbers who attend the pools aren't even listed in this report. It's irrelevant to this particular report. So to me, it's just irrelevant. So I'll be voting against.
Is there a question, Councillor Stewart?
I'm trying to think what relevance is. What?
Yeah, just through the chair, please, Councillor
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I'm just trying. I
Do you have a question?
I don't see what the relevance is.
Once again, it's a statement. Do you have a
Yes,
question for
sorry.
Councillor Devereux?
Nothing further to add.
So Councillor Devereux has moved to lay it on the table. If there's no further questions to Councillor Devereux, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Devereux. Those against? Councillor Stewart, Councillor Polly, Councillor Waldock, Councillor Smurden, Councillor Hartwig, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Fredman, Councillor Mill. The motion is defeated. We'll go back to the original motion that's before us. If there's no questions for Ms Stark, Councillor Devereux.
I have a question on part 2 in respect to the Rainbow Beach Aquatic Centre. Delegate to the Chief Executive Officer authority to negotiate a suitable agreement with Rainbow Beach Sports and Recreation and Memorial Club Inc. In regard to council's contributions and the pool operating and reporting arrangements. So will that come back to council? Sorry, Mayor Hartwig, will that come back to council for us to ratify like we do with the ARC, Kandanga, Gameri, Tinkan even? Or are we just giving permission that whatever he comes up with now, that will be what's done?
I think we had a pretty robust discussion around this at the workshop and made it pretty clear to the CEO what our expectations were. I think he understands we see that as an important community asset. We want to make sure that there is a benefit to the community.
That's not my question.
You're asking whether it'll come back, and I'm simply saying to you, I believe we've given the CEO enough information in relation to this recommendation. If it is passed, it won't need to come back to council for ratification.
In that case, I'd like to adjust the motion.
You'd like to move an amendment, would you?
Yes.
Could you state your... Oh, okay. Councillor Jensen,
Sorry, I should have.
you have a conflict, do you?
Conflict here as well.
7.2.
Yeah. She should reiterate.
Can I do that now?
If you have if you've realised you have a
Yes,
conflict, please
yes.
let us know.
So I haven't entered the debate, but I'm asking,
You just need to outline the conflict and
Oh.
what it relates to.
Rainbow Beach. It's general manager of the
Okay.
club, although she doesn't have any, she doesn't run the pools.
Councillor, any questions for councillor Jensen?
I'm just trying to, Councillor Jensen, understand the disconnect between your relationship with your daughter and Mr. Spurden's relationship with his fiance. To me, it just seemed very similar, of a similar level. Is it at a lower level that has no effect?
Oh, I'm just declaring that, yeah, it's on the same block of land as the club that she manages, although she doesn't manage the pool.
Right.
But it's all owned by council, so I'm just declaring there's a conflict of interest because she's the manager of the club, which is right next door and part of that.
So,
I don't think it will impair my decision making.
so her role as a manager is not really affecting the operations of the pool or the pool to council. That's what I'm saying.
Just making sure.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Jensen would like to remain in the room. Is there someone to move?
Okay.
Councillor Polly, Councillor Wardrock to second. All those in favour? Carried.
Sorry.
That's all right. These things happen. Councillor Devray, you wish to make a amendment?
Yes, I'd like to add and bring this back to council to ratify. I just think, sorry, am I allowed to talk on that?
If we can just have the recommendation changed first.
So number 2, just add it on the end, if you like. Bring this back to council.
For information or,
I'm gonna have to hand it right. It's not working. Apologies.
righto.
Yeah.
So do you want council to approve the negotiations or you just want to be informed?
I want to approve. It's
Okay.
money and,
I know, so so those words, so it needs to be brought back to council for approval.
okay.
So the,
I suppose you can't write that, you handwrite it.
No.
yeah, so councillors, the system isn't working up there, so to be, in regard to council's contribution to pool operating reporting arrangements and that this agreement or negotiations be brought back to council for approval. We've got that back, great.
Yep.
You wish to speak on your,
Yes, please.
I have a question.
yep,
I just have a question because you've only got it for 2, but 1B says the same thing.
Mm.
So why have you isolated one pool as agreement over the other?
Well, one's with a private organisation, the other one's with the state government. That's my thinking.
Councillor Devro?
As councillors, we basically have 2 main things we can influence. One's the money, one's the job of the CEO. I am far more comfortable representing the residents of the region when we have some say in the final money in things like these. We did it for the Ark. We did it for Kendanga, Gameri, Tin Can Bay. We're doing it for Kilkeith, and I don't understand why Rainbow Beach should be any different. So that's why I'd just like to have that on, have it come back to a meeting. I can't see it's going to slow things down. Thank you.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Polly?
So now, I suppose my question may be directed at governance. I'm agreeing with Councillor Devereux. Yep, it's fine. Could bring it back and we'll tick the box. But by legislation, does this have to happen, or are we setting a precedent? Because down the track, you'd be going, like, for example, why didn't we do it with Kilkeven? Why don't we do it with the next one? I've seen other staff sort of shaking their head thinking this does not have to happen. So what's the role of the CEO? Are we making him do things we're not supposed to make him do, I suppose?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, could we have one minute just to confer on this with?
Yeah,
Councillor?
yep, fine.
I think we just should look for a second or two while we're in. There's someone to second?
I'm happy to second it.
Councillor Polly to second.
Was my question, was that clear, question?
Mm.
I think so. It's-
Through you, Mr. Mayor, obviously we haven't had the opportunity to speak with my director about this. But the view of staff is that we see no problem in bringing this back to council. The sums involved towards the Rainbow Beach pool are Kilkeven pool. Those would need to be determined through council's budget process each year in any event. So there would be some determination by council, obviously, about that funding going forward. If it's a multi-year agreement, whereby we'll be committing council to, say, up to 3 years worth of funding, it would be on a case-by-case basis. We could bring that to council. So as you've seen today with the lease for the aerodrome, we do bring leases to council for your approval. The two arrangements and agreements here are not leases, so it's not an investment in land per se, because we don't, the Kilkeven pool is on Education Queensland, so it's more a contractual arrangement setting out the financial contributions that council would offer up to Education Queensland. So based on a very quick discussion with the governance manager, it would be on a case-by-case basis throughout.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may add to that. Essentially, this recommendation is only authorising the negotiation of the agreement. It isn't signing the agreement. Signing the agreement would be subject to annual budgetary process and or preclude annual budgetary process. If we were going to preclude the annual budgetary process, we would have to bring it back to council for resolution in terms of the agreement. If we were going to put it in the budget process, then council would subsequently resolve and address that through the budget process also. So either way, the recommendation sits as it is about negotiating an agreement, and then that will have to come back to council one way or the other. So, I mean, there's no problem amending the recommendation, but it probably isn't necessary.
Councillor Mill.
I do have a small question because it's got pool operating and reporting arrangements. I know we've got standards for operating hours for our other pools and things like that, but I don't recall ever reading the reporting arrangements and things like that. I thought it was in their leasing, so I'm not quite sure how much of the agreements is to standardise the money and then it will be in terms of such and such.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may answer that. The current arrangement with the Rainbow Beach Aquatic Centre Sports and Recreation Club doesn't have any requirement for them to provide their attendance usage figures and or reporting, which is one of the reasons that Councillor Devereux referenced a mistake in the previous report, because we had some issues attempting to get that data. So this is in essence is quantifying that, clarifying the situation, and putting a commitment on the Rainbow Beach Aquatic Centre to provide that information in return for our support funding.
Further question, so it'll be in line similar with our other pools and our standard.
Same as Belgravia and same as Kilkeven if the motion's carried.
I just don't recall knowing all of the details of those, so I'm just quite sure what agreements will come back. But I mean, if it's got to come back to us anyway because of the money.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, officers would be recommending that it's commensurate with the pool. So we say with Kilkeven, it may not be to the same level of detailed reporting that we would require from the likes of Belgravia, given that they are responsible for running the pool. And same with Rainbow Beach, it would be more around attendance and visitation and breaking down the categories of that visitation. So just adding on to what Mr. Burns outlined is we need to get a little bit more agreement between the parties as to what that reporting is and on how regularly. So under the lease, there are obligations about providing the lessor, which is us, with information, but it doesn't spell out what that information is and how regular that needs to be. So I'm sure we can work with the parties to just think around what are we looking for and is it reasonable?
Any other questions, councillors? So we have an amendment there. Moved by Councillor Devereux, seconded by Councillor Polley. It's not that's not working at the moment, Stark. So Oh, it is actually.
Yeah.
I've got it on there.
You've,
Fixed it.
Ironed out the bugs, right,
Three.
Yeah,
Also needs
that's
to be
correct.
for one B as well. same word.
No, that's not what he moved.
Oh, sorry. It's up to-
Oh, so that's why.
there were,
It's 4.2.
I don't know whether the negotiations is the right word, because we are approving negotiations.
I said this.
I think are you suggesting the outcome? Yeah. Yeah, the agreement. Yep. Yeah, yep. Agreement around council's contribution. Are you comfortable with
I
that,
am
councillor
comfortable
Deborah?
with that. Thank you.
Yep.
But would you like that to be the proposed agreement? Because it would be up to council to approve.
Yes. I think that, yep.
Does it approval cover that?
Post. Agreement.
Well, it's not an agreement until it's approved, as Stark pointed out. Happy with that?
Happy with
councillor?
that? Thank you.
You're happy with that, councillor Polly? Okay, we have some recommendations there before us, councillors. If there's no further questions of staff, we'll have councillor Deborah speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Matt Hartwig. I'm far more comfortable with that, and thank you very much, Mr. Burns, for pointing out that it would anyway. But this just makes it nice and clear, so there's no grey area. I certainly didn't read it as what you said it should read as. So I'm very the wording and that happens. Thank you.
Councillor Polly?
Well, I'm happy to support Councillor Devereux's intentions.
Two speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? Councillor Mill?
I'm a little bit miffed why it's just one pool, not the other. That's what I mean. It's standardised, and it was obviously indicated that it will come back to these agreements as well. So we're actually identifying one pool over another to have this come back, even though they're probably going to come back to us anyway. So I would have preferred if they're going to amend it to do both or none at all. So that's why I'm a little bit against this one, because it's clearly identifying one pool over another.
As a speaker against your recommendation, any other speakers for or against? Councillor Deborah to close.
I will add, you can always, someone else can always change the motion, the second one if they wish, I guess, but this is where I'm comfortable and what I'm most concerned about. So thank you.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Stewart, Councillor Polly, Councillor Waldock. Actually, it's unanimous. Done.
So
It's like against, isn't it?
Getting around.
Against.
Right.
do you mind?
Kilkeevan pool had a specific name.
Item 7.5.
Can't vote again.
We voted for the amendment.
Yeah.
What were you voting for the
It was just the add-on.
Was that, I thought it was just voting on the amendment.
There was the amendment. The whole thing's gone through.
didn't we,
Is the amendment?
in the amendment, part of a whole motion?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's.
then I
that's-
apologise. I
which
thought
is
we were
what
voting
we-
on the amendment and then you could change the other one if you wanted to change it. Otherwise,
No,
I'm done.
it was the whole motion. That's why I can't go against the motion,
Whole
but
motion.
I didn't think it was right, so I had to speak against.
And to clarify, I think the difference between the two is that the first section has financial amounts in there, financial contributions in there, whereas the second one doesn't, and that's probably Councillor Devereux's concern.
Oh, it's in the report.
Anyway, let's item 7.5, response to notified motion, Gympie Urban Art. I'll hand over to Ms Stark again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So a notified motion, Gympie Urban Art, was brought to Council's ordinary meeting on the 21st of September 2022. Officers presented initial responses to the notified motion and presented a draft mural policy for discussion at Council's workshop on the 9th of November 2022. I'll take the report as read and happy to take any questions. And note that the final recommendations outline that council resolved to review council's public art policy and approve the recommendation in regard to Zoin Killer. Thank you, Mr.
Any questions, councillors? There's no questions. We have a recommendation there before us. Someone to move, councillor Devro, someone to second, councillor Stewart. Councillor Devro to speak.
Thank you, Mayor Hardwick. I am glad we're going to review the public art policy. I do understand the issues around the Zoin Killer. I'm glad it's going to be left unless it has to be moved at the moment. So I just feel, given that I brought this up in the first place, an obligation to show that I do support council as an organisation in this decision.
Councillor Stewart.
Mr Mayor, I look forward to the new public art policy, revised one, which may hopefully include something more specific about murals, and I look forward to the possibility of appropriate murals in appropriate places in the future. So I support.
Two speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Devro to close.
Nothing more to add.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. The item will be item 7.6, I believe. Yep. Hand over to Mr. Stark and Mr. Dawn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report before you in regard to Mary Street festivals. The purpose of this report is to seek council direction on the funding and delivery of a proposed Mary Street Christmas event on the 21st of December 2022. We'll take the report as read and just highlight the conclusion that we are seeking council's direction on whether to fund and deliver the proposed event on the 21st of December, noting that council's decision to fund and deliver the event will result in the chamber ceasing to deliver its the planned activities in 2023, that being the Easter and winter 2023. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions, councillors? No questions?
Oh, sort of.
Councillor Pollen?
I would like to, Mayor, to understand from, was the staff in the room here who were in the negotiations with the Chamber of Commerce? Yeah, no? Through Mr. Mayor. You were in it? I just wondered, you could describe the mood of the negotiations. Was it congenial?
I'm not, yes, I think it's rather up to the interpretation of the individuals and may not result in
constructive?
outcome, councillor Pollen.
It was a robust conversation.
Councillor Stewart?
Mr Mayor, it's a bit hard to ask questions when it's not a specific motion, because it's really asking for ideas from councillors. And to me, there's, as I've been thinking about over the last week or so, there's two issues. One is this specific, what are we going to do with Christmas? And should we have a second one for Christmas? A Mary Street event. The other issue is around the longer term or medium term. What's the best way to organise Mary Street events if we want to keep them going? Now, I would prefer to keep them going. I think in the medium term, we need, even the shorter term, we need to perhaps call for expressions of interest. And they even put up, we want up to 4 Mary Street events a year. We're willing to fund this much. Who's willing to organise it and see what comes back? If no one comes back wanting to organise it, then that says something to me about what the community wants. If a couple of people put up their hand and we think organising events, then we can support them. That's, I think, my way forward.
I think as Councillor Stewart pointed out, this is probably going to be more of a discussion rather than a question session. So, Councillor Smoot?
Mr. Dawn, do we actually have a Mary Street Traders formed at the moment?
Through Mr. Mayor, no, to my knowledge, we don't have a formal Mary Street Traders group at the moment.
Are they keen?
Again, I think there's been discussions to form again. It might be under a different moniker though, but I can't speak on their behalf. I'm sorry.
So you don't really know whether, if they do form, if they are keen to take on these?
Through Mr. Mayor, no, not formally, Councillor Smurden, no.
I'm comfortable. I think those, as much as people say those events are for the traders, I would argue that there's probably a significant, community health and community connectivity benefit that outweighs any benefit to the traders. Those events bring our region together, and it's not uncommon to bump into people that are acquaintances or friends that you haven't seen or spoken to for 12 months, and it keeps the fabric of our society or community strong. One of the common comments that I receive when I ask people that come to our region, what is it that brought you here, or what's so appealing? And it even the Mr. Weir, the principal of Tin Can Bay School, grew up on the sunny coast, has worked in a couple of areas around the state. But the statement he made to me last night was he loves Gympie because it's just got that community feel. And these events actually maintain that fabric, maintain that community feel, and bring people together. And I believe they help enhance that thing that other regions don't have, the thing that draws people in. And when you draw people in with something like that, they move their family here, which in turn supports the traders. I don't understand the notion of, well, if council does this extra event to support what has traditionally been done for 8 or 10 years, the chamber won't step in and do the other ones. We've done other events in Mary Street, like Wheels on Mary as well. I just feel there is no data to justify not having a second event. If the second event wasn't successful in years past, I would say it's probably not worth investing ratepayer funds in it. But while that event is successful, while people are still coming out and enjoying each other's company, and we're having events that separate us from other regions and make us more appealing to other people, then I'm very much in favour of supporting it. And I do completely agree with Councillor Stewart, and expressions of interest around some of the traders or a group that wanted to step up and fill that role and assist council and ratepayers in delivering would be a really good outcome, and also give an opportunity to gauge where the community's at from an actions point of view. Any other comments, councillors? Councillor Jensen?
After everything Mary Street's been through, I think they need all the help that we can give them. Happy to support.
Councillor Polling?
I think I'm with Councillor Stewart that everybody wants council to support, facilitate, and we want the events, but I'm not keen on the idea that council now has to own it and run it and organise it. We support it, we facilitate it. So I'm sort of with the first half of the motion. We want to do it, but I don't want it to fall back on us to actually have to.
Well, I think,
someone in the community's got to raise up and go, yeah, I'll run that.
I think at this point, just based around time, if council were to desire for the 21st of September event, it would be something we would need to step into, because to organise a community group in a short space of time would be impossible.
Yep.
However, moving forward, as Councillor Stewart pointed out, having that discussion with the community and looking for expressions of interest to fill the role and the void that you see, I think would be beneficial. Are you comfortable with that?
Oh, I'm happy.
That process moving
Yes.
forward?
Yeah.
Councillor Devereux?
Mayor Hartwig, given some of the discussions we've had here today about low staff numbers and the rest of it, what sort of a burden would this be on staff if council had to deliver?
The one event would create some extra work. There's no doubt about that. We can't sidestep it. I'd have to defer to Mr. Point and Ms. Stark in relation to whether or not they feel it's possible.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Devereux, it is possible to host the 21st of December event. Long term, though, we need some more direction on where you wanted to go with it in terms of where we are resource wise. But as you said before, for the community benefit, we can step in and assist. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Councillor Smoot?
I agree with Councillor Polly. I just can't we're going to lock ourselves into running these future community events. Fair enough, the 21st of December. But after that, I think it should come back to council and, you know, we should approach other community groups and try and find something other than us.
Councillor Fredman.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I've read this correspondence a couple of times. In my opinion, it's effectively saying that if we tip money in to do a second Christmas night for the Mary Street traders, the Chamber of Commerce will retaliate by pulling out of running all future events. Regardless of whether or not the Chamber wants to be involved in supporting Mary Street, in my opinion, this correspondence has got a smell of blackmail to it. I also note that the board backed it unanimously. So as much as I love Mary Street, I find that because of this undercurrent, I've got no option but to argue to leave the status quo remain. The future may unfold in an entirely different way, but at the moment, with this threat in front of us, I'm inclined to leave the status quo as it is. It is one party.
The staff are looking for direction there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we could draft up a resolution. So if you were to, because I know that there's no recommendation.
Yep.
So one way would be council resolve to fund and deliver Mary Street Christmas event on 21 December 2022 and leave the resolution at that. That doesn't commit council to funding and delivering going forward. It's simply committing to that one, noting though that the ramifications would be that then the Chamber of Commerce, based on the minutes, is likely to then withdraw its or not sign the funding agreement for the Recovery, Resilience and Wellbeing Grant, and then they would not the Easter and winter one. The Chamber have made it very clear that they will continue with the event on the 14th of December, as they have other funding. And council has already provided approval to provide in-kind assistance for the event on the 14th of December. So if council was to support that resolution, the event would still happen on the 14th of December as delivered by the Chamber of Commerce. And then the second event on the 21st of December would be funded and delivered by Mary Street. So that is one way, or the other way would be that council resolve not to fund and deliver a Mary Street Christmas event on the 21st of December 2022.
I think if we, just before we go to council, if we just frame up a resolution that we can discuss and
There's two of them.
my understanding initially is the first person to speak against it is Councillor Fredman. So if we have a resolution in the positive, and then we can deal with that recommendation. Council resolves to facilitate event on the 22nd of December. Councillor Stewart.
I've got a question, and I think Ms. Stark's probably the one that might get answered, or maybe Mr. Burns. Would it be possible, would staff have the capacity to bring a report back to the January meeting about the possibility of calling like for expressions of interest for future?
At a future meeting.
Yeah.
I think that would be an outcome of whatever transpires. If the statements from the chamber don't eventuate and they reconsider their position and want to continue supporting Mary Street and our residents, then we'd be very happy to continue those arrangements. But I guess until we have something in concrete, but perhaps once we get something in concrete from the chamber, staff can bring back something appropriate.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in direct response to your question, yes, we could bring a report. It may be a little premature. It may be more appropriate to bring it in February, but then that would cause us some problems with an Easter event. So we would endeavour to bring it in January as a report regarding a way ahead of how we would manage and support the delivery of those events, noting support the delivery of those events, not necessarily deliver them directly by council. We would also need to recognise that we have actually granted the money in the previous item, the community grants item, to the chamber, and the chamber can now determine whether they wish to sign that funding agreement or not. If they sign that funding agreement, it may be that one of the delivery methodologies we agree is for them to run Easter, April, But if they choose not to sign that funding agreement, then we can take over that responsibility and we can bring forward a methodology to council in January of how that might occur. I would suggest it's rather challenging for the officers, but it is possible.
Councillor Deborah.
Will do.
Mayor Hardwick, thank you. Just backing up for a second on what Councillor Fredman just brought up. I have concerns, and I'd like to know your thoughts on it, that it does seem like the chamber, you know, I don't know whether it's what I read in the paper, what I've read in here, it just seems like it's an excuse to get out of what they don't want to be in the first place. So that's how it reads to me. So I don't know if it's a threat so much as a way to get what they want out of it and get out of it. My concern with, if we have the second event, is will the first event happen now? I know you've indicated that they've said they will, but what you've also said, I think, is that they're going to have to find the funds for it. It's not going to be any money for that. So I'm thinking, do we need to, there'll be stuff in kind for it, yes, but there won't be any actual funds. Do we need to put in place, because it's so close to Christmas, something to say if they back out of that first event, that we can still give the residents those two events at Christmas? I just think the region suffered so much. And recently, any event like this is worth putting on. What are your thoughts around that, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the grant application that was submitted by the Gympie Chamber of Commerce made it clear that they would be proceeding with the 14th of December event, whether the grant was approved or not. That is based on the budget breakdown that they submitted as part of the application, which outlines that they have funds remaining from a gambling community benefit fund, whereby they are to deliver events on Mary Street. So of the grant that they sought from council, which was the 29,120, I think, only 1,469 was the cash component being sought by council. So that was a fairly small component, whereas for the Easter and winter events, the budget outline was 13,825. So they made it clear in the grant application, and again, when they spoke with council representatives last week, that they would definitely go ahead with the 14th of December. That was their commitment. They have other funding for it, so that one definitely will go ahead. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the Chamber of Commerce did put in a grant application and was following the process that was approved to in council's community grants policy and community grants guidelines. So the Chamber did go about, complying with the grants guidelines and the process to deliver the activities in Mary Street in 22 and 23. I'd just like to put that on the record.
And
Councillor Deborah.
if I could, I'd also like to say it's totally up to them what they do. I'm not going to criticise the chamber, but just going on the quotes that have been given, it does seem like they would like to be out of it. Would you consider that we should make up that 1,000 and so many dollars to make sure that the event goes ahead? I just want to plug as many holes as we can to make sure it happens.
Through you, Ms. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, officers haven't had the opportunity to speak to our director, but we do note that as part of council's approved budget for 22-23, there is a budget line item of.
I think we need a specific resolution to allocate that.
Well, it's
Should we?
through you, Mr. Mayor, it's actually also allocated part of council's 2022-23 budget. So there was a line item to the value of $10,000. Gympie Chamber of Commerce, as approved as part of the 22-23 budget. That would be the budget line item that we would use to provide the traffic management and street closures for the 14th of December event. It is within operational ability to apply some of those funds to the extra $1,500 because we already have $10,000 in the budget to support Gympie Chamber of Commerce events. So that's one way of doing it. Alternately, the Chamber of Commerce could revise its grant budget application to say $2,000 and deliver $2,000 pursuant to the grant. It's easy, just to-
Thank you.
Are councillors comfortable with option one as a general consensus discussion point at the moment? So if we just want to move option either 2 down or, I mean, the only difference to them is the not in there. So if we want to perhaps even delete it, and if option one isn't successful, then we can just copy and add not to it. The question around the shortfall in funding, do councillors want to add into the resolution that we commit some of that money that Ms Stark has mentioned to that? As Mr Burns has pointed out, that would be the most prudent way to do that, to ensure that we're meeting our legislative requirements. That money may have been presented to councillors as a certain light, and if we're going to allocate it for a specific purpose, we probably should include that in the resolution. So just some feedback from councillors to whether or not they want to include that in there. Yep, or 1,500 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Councillors happy with that, so cool that as well, please.
Really missing. Yeah, to either the 1,500 or up to 2,000.
That council allocate up to no more than $2,000
Cash contribution.
cash contribution. Yeah.
Is someone talking up?
Councillor Mill.
Certainly, Christmas event on 14th.
Mr Mayor, I'd probably have a question for all my fellow councillors here. You had actually outlined that these type of events are community binding, the community wellbeing events are not specifically derived for economic driver and things like that. It's about actually making our communities communities. So my question is, and probably to every councillor, is what is council's role in providing that service to our community? Is it something that we do expect other organisations to do for us on our behalf, or is it something that council should have a role in specific times or places, so we're guaranteed to have those wellbeing events through the year and actually develop that capacity within council, and that's what we do. So we know we have to do it, because to put it out to community organisations all the time is a strain. They are volunteers. There is not many organisations that have paid staff.
I understand the question. I think it's absolutely
relevant to this because we're taking on the 21st of December. So we're obviously saying if we have capacity to do something like that. So we're moving into a space that we've always said we're moving away from. And by doing this, we're moving back into that space that we're actually going to take that responsibility back on.
But we're looking at as a one-off. The question that you're putting to councillors in general is, in terms of the future long term, how do we intend to roll this out? And I think the the workshop that's proposed will be the best opportunity to have that discussion and give us all a bit of time to work through it. Because I think part of an answer to your question is, well, there is a council responsibility, you know, to maintain this fabric, but then we know we do our best work when we partner with a community organisation. So, but in terms of this resolution, I think your question is a much bigger conversation than what we are going to deal with here today in relation to this one.
Then I respect that. It's just, are we setting a precedent with this decision today? So that was my question. I'll probably sit that. I don't require an answer. I just wanted to pose the question. And if there is an answer, then they can answer, but I'm laying it out there.
Councillor Stewart.
And I think answer Councillor Milne's query, if we could add to that, if it's just with everyone else, that we ask staff to come back to council, perhaps at the February workshop. I'm not too sure. Mr. Burns might be able to have better timing than me. How we may support community to maintain Mary Street events or something to that effect. Personally, it's up to the community to maintain community cohesion. Council's here to support the community. That's my view, I guess. And to have some feedback from staff about the way forward in these regards to particularly Mary Street events.
But as I said, I think that's a conversation we can have at that workshop. Hopefully, if possible, it would be good to have it in January, because I think we need to really set that foundation and understand the direction, not only for us, but for the community. Well, I think staff understand what we want in that workshop. So I'm not sure that we need it in the recommendation. If councillors, I'm comfortable that staff will understand what we want to achieve based on their attendance here today. Unless councillors wish to add an addition to that recommendation that be considered at a future workshop.
That'd be my preference, but might be no one else's.
Anyways,
I'm happy with. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Polly?
Directed at Councillor Fredman, trying to understand his comments. Your understanding of the correspondence is that the Chamber are making a demand, don't fund the 21st or else, and you're saying we should capitulate to that demand and in order to get the next 3 events happening? Is that what you were suggesting?
We need a motion, then I'll speak to it and answer that question.
I thought, well, you
There's no
intimated.
mover and seconder.
No.
Oh, sorry.
So
You can move the motion first. I'm happy.
no, if there's no further questions, is there someone to move the recommendation there? If we just delete option 2, please. Is that a yes to the mover? Councillor Devro to move. Someone to second.
Deleted all of it.
Undo. There we go. It's just the option 2.
Magic undo button.
No. Too far.
Go one digit in.
Yeah, that's it.
Charles said.
There we go. Happy days.
Through you,
Like-
Mr Mayor, we just put some clarification into that
Yes.
resolution that council supports a $2,000 cash contribution together with in-kind services from the existing 22-23 budget, because we have made we will be providing other expenses for street closure and cleaning, sound equipment and technicians and generators. So just wanted to make sure it's not just the 2,000, it's 2,000 plus the in-kind services on the 14th.
Up to 2,000.
Yeah, that's.
oh yeah, up to.
So if
Up to?
typically it's up to in front of the 2,000.
Councillor Devro has moved. Is there someone to second? Councillor Stewart, Councillor Devro to speak.
I think we've pretty much said everything. What most important thing here, I think, is the residents of our region. These events are well attended. And it's wonderful taking your kids up the street, walk in the middle of the street, all the lights, the bands, the food. It's just a really great night. And we've had two for a bit, and it's awesome. So good discussion.
Councillor Stewart.
I back up what Councillor Devereux said. They are popular events, and so I'm keen to see how we move forward on this, but this provides a good immediate solution, I think. I think the Chamber of Commerce has itself said that they are not really event organisers, and that's fair enough. And so hopefully we can continue with a good relationship with them as well. Thank you.
Two speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Councillor Fredman, can you raise your right arm, please?
When I read that letter and reread it, I felt quite offended. And this motion basically, in my opinion, gives in to a ransom demand. It might be extreme words, but that's the way it comes across to me. That said, there's another bigger issue here, which I think would favour us letting the chamber go ahead with the functions next year and us not doing the second one this year. And bear in mind, I go to most of these and I enjoy them. This is just in response to the tone and the facts in the letter to council. If we let it go, chamber then do the next couple next year, it gives time for us to help a new association to be formed, because it's going to have to be incorporated. I'm suggesting that something like a Main Street committee that we used to have, if there's enough volunteers, would be an ideal way forward. That's going to take 6 months to get together, and to get anyone to respond to an expression of interest might be a bit of a challenge. I think if we buy time by not going ahead with the second party and have the chamber do it, it means that we've got time to help facilitate a Main Street committee. I also think a Main Street committee has got lots of other potential benefits, and it may not be quite on the topic, but for example, one that's close to the Mayor's heart, Mary Street tree pruning or removal. That's the sort of thing we could liaise with a Main Street committee on. As well as that, organising events with our assistance would be an obvious thing for them to do. There are also town planning issues, which I believe will be very handy for us to be talking to a Main Street committee about. So hence, apart from taking offence at the tone of the correspondence we received, I think there are some other benefits in not having the second party. Even though I enjoy a party, I just think that we're rushing it, and better off letting the status quo remain. And it also means that people don't benefit from giving us a letter of demand.
We've had two speakers for, speaker against. Any other speakers for the recommendation? Councillor Smerd.
I'd just like to ask, yes, Brendan, you said that this is giving in to a ransom
Sorry,
demand.
Councillor Smerd, there's question times.
No, you can ask a question anytime.
A statement to make.
Well, I don't think it is personally giving into it. I think if we didn't hold it, we'd be giving in to a ransom demand. So that's my take on it.
Can I answer that, Mr. Chairman? The reality is, the deal is, if we do it, they don't do any more events, and we have to take them over if we want them. So it's pretty clear to me that it's a demand.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Milne.
This one's got me a little bit. I think I'm going to go on the against one, because I actually do hear what Councillor Fredman is talking about. We all have a party. I've taken my children up. They quite like it. But I can understand where the chamber is coming from, because we've given the chamber, we don't have the capacity to run these events. You run the events, you find funding. I believe they found funding, must be the community benefits grant, things like that for the last ones we've had now. And they've obviously sought funding through another grant program to do the next year's ones. But then all of a sudden we come along and go, oh, no, we can do just a one-off in the middle. Well, it's I can see where they're coming from. So we can do the one-off, you can do all of them then, because that's not our core business. So we are not really safeguarding next year's events. We're just giving an extra one this year. and I've got concerns and reservations, such as councillor Fredman does, that if we do put the second one on, then we potentially could be jeopardising 2 more next year for the community that is spread out. So I'm a little bit torn on this one, and I'm finding it's quite a complex issue because it's a little bit to think about. I'd love to put another party up. I love the community. We've been through a lot, but they're getting one near Christmas. Are we going to get the next 2 next year? Are we going to have stuff done in time? Are we going to be able to do it? Or are we going to have to take on that responsibility? Because that was that posing question. Are we going to have to do it ourselves because no one's going to be there for it? So it is. I don't find it a demand or anything like that. It's just like, well, we're obviously saying we can do stuff, so let us do it. Or do we just let them take the next 3 and then we go and find alternatives in that meantime, gives us that buy time, and we can guarantee that community they get their 3: Christmas, Easter and winter.
Any other speakers for or against? Happy to speak for it. The reality is there's no guarantee, irrespective of today's outcome, that the Chamber will put events on next year. They may have applied for grant funding, but until the event is actually done, there's no guarantee that it will be. And I am concerned, as Councillor Fredman is, with the tone of the letter. And if we, for want of better words, give in to these demands, how can we guarantee that, you know, there won't be more demands around the 2 events next year that they said they will put on? There could be extra effort required from council. Historically, we've always had 2 events at Christmas. They've been well attended. I do not understand why, you know, the Chamber feels the way they do. And we have put on extra events in Mary Street before, like Wheels on Mary, because we see it as a great gathering opportunity for the residents of our region, and also an opportunity to provide an economic stimulus in the main street. As Councillor Jensen and Councillor Devereux pointed out, that area of town was decimated more than most business areas during the floods, and it's taken a long while to get back. There are businesses coming back into Mary Street. There is life occurring there, and 2 events I think are needed to help support that part of town. I believe there will be people that will put their hand up to maintain these wonderful opportunities. It can't be underestimated either that the work that our staff do anyway, you know, we call it in kind, but as you heard just before, generators, traffic control, street closures, there's a significant amount of work that our staff already do. It's not as if we are rolling in with a cup of hot tea and a couple of scones for the Chamber to help them out. This was a collaborative effort, and our staff were carrying a considerable amount of burden. Not only that, then there's the promotion as well that our staff did. So yes, to put the event on the 21st, there is an extra burden on our staff. But I'm just flabbergasted that given the year that we've had, Chamber's response, and I can in no way support that approach to the fabric of our region and also the important businesses that operate in Mary Street. Councillor Devereux to close.
Thank you, Mayor Hartwig. In closing, I would like to reiterate these events are so important to the families of Gympie. It's not even really the traders. I know that they'll do well out of it, the ones that open probably, but it's the residents of Gympie. This is Christmas. It's bright, there's food, there's rides, bouncy castles, all the rest of it. It's council's way to give a little bit to not only to the Mary Street traders, but to the residents of the region. And if you break it down into dollar terms per resident, it doesn't cost us an awful lot, but it means an awful lot to people. And if they miss one, they've got the next one to go to. And these days, with the way everyone, all the hours for everyone, it doesn't seem to be as many full-time jobs these days, 9 to 5 as what they used to be. I would like to just, when we go to the motion now, I just want to finally say thank you to staff for putting so much into this. I know it's probably been a lot more work than even we've made out today. And I think the residents of Gympie will appreciate the fact that you have put your hand up to make this happen. So thank you.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Stewart, Councillor Smerdon, Councillor Hartwig, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Devro. Against? Councillor Polly, Councillor Waldock, Councillor Fredman, Councillor Hill. The motion is carried. With that, we'll move on to item 8.1. Infrastructure services, the proposed trustee lease for the Palms Rural Fire Brigade. Hand over to you, Mr. McGann.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, councillor. So item 8.1 is the proposed renewal of the trustee lease to the Palms Rural Fire Brigade. I have with me the manager, Mr French, who will deliver the report. Thank you.
Morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. As you see, staff are seeking a recommendation that a new lease for the Palms Rural Fire Brigade on land that council's trustee for be undertaken. I'll just point out in the body of the report, there's a typo that's just recently been picked up. We talk of on page 61 of a further 10-year period. Just to confirm, it is a 20-year lease that's been recommended. It's essentially a renewal existing arrangement.
Any questions, councillors? Straightforward, important function for our region. There's no questions. We'll go to the recommendation. Councillor Smerdon to move, someone to second. Councillor Mill, Councillor Smerdon to speak.
As with all our rural fire, they do a great job. And this is just supporting them doing that great job by giving them a place to have their equipment. So happy to move.
Councillor Mill.
Oh, I'm happily seconding it. We need somewhere for our rural fireys to go. They provide an exemplary service to our community on a volunteer basis. So yeah, let's get them home.
Two speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Smerdon to close.
Happy to move.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. We will now take a short break just before we go in committee, so we can prepare the room. We'll have a 5 or 10 minute adjournment.